call the Finance Committee meeting to order at 6:45. Consideration of claims. Chair would entertain a motion for the approval of claims.
Your Honor, I make a motion for the consideration of claims to be paid in the amount of $415,170.84. Manual check in the amount of $65,763. Payroll and liabilities for September 24th, 2024 in the amount of $485,412.19 for a total of $966,346.03.
Is there a motion for a second?
I'll second, Your Honor.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Is there anything from the floor? Kyle?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Sister Harris?
Yes, Your Honor. Also included in tonight's packet is a request from the Riverton Rendezvous Balloon Committee, and they're requesting a reimbursement of $10,000 for an approved grant from the Tourism Asset Development Fund. The monies for the Riverton Rendezvous Committee and the TAD dollars are managed separately and independently of any other funds within the city's monies. In most cases, funds dispersed for entities from the TAD program are prepared through the normal claims process and approved by the City Council. In this instance, because both of the funds are managed by the city, an internal transfer would be necessary for us to fulfill this funding request. So at this time, I am also asking approval of an internal transfer of $10,000 from the TAD fund to the Riverton Rendezvous Balloon Committee.
Do you need a motion on that then?
Your Honor, yes, please.
Do I have a motion on that?
I'll move to amend that.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
That won't be included in this, though. This is external. That's external to this budget that we just approved right now, right?
No, Your Honor, it is included in this.
It is included in there.
Yes.
Very good, thank you. And you said you have nothing, Kyle?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. For that reason, Finance Committee is adjourned.
I now call the October 1st, 2024 regular meeting of the Riverton City Council to order at 7 p.m. Councilmember Peranto has agreed to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, after which I will give the invocation. We can all rise and remove your hats. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Heavenly Father, we're grateful for the opportunity we have to serve this community in the capacities that we do. We ask that it please help us that throughout this meeting tonight we can demonstrate respect, patience, and be able to listen to each other and to be able to understand each other well. We thank Thee very much for the citizens of this great city who serve in the many capacities that they do, and ask Thee to protect them as they serve, including particularly our police department, our fire department, our EMTs, and other first responders, and also ask that You would protect our soldiers, especially those who are serving from Fremont County. Please protect them and guide them and help them to be blessed with safety and with a greater degree of Thy Spirit to be able to make choices that will benefit them, their squad, and also our country. We say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
All right, Administrative Services Director, please conduct the roll call.
Yes, Your Honor. Councilmember Dean Peranto.
Here.
Councilmember Lindsey Cox.
Absent.
Councilmember Mike Bailey.
Here.
Councilmember Carla Borders.
Here.
Councilmember Kyle Larson.
Present.
Councilmember Christy Salisbury.
Here.
Mayor Tim Hancock.
I am present. I'd entertain a motion to excuse Councilwoman Lindsey Cox from tonight's meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilwoman Borders, second by Councilman Peranto. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
I vote aye. Any opposed say nay. Motion passes. I declare we have a quorum. I'd entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda as presented.
Second.
Councilmember Peranto with the motion, Councilmember Bailey with the second. Any discussion, additions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. I vote aye. Motion passes. Council committee reports, council members roundtable. Let's go ahead and start with Councilman Larson, since you tend to be in the middle and we don't tend to start with you.
That's by choice, too.
Oh, yes. I'll remember that next time.
Very good. Not to steal anybody's thunder, but I have not attended any meetings since solid waste or the downtowners meeting about the parking lot. But I did receive an email today stating how the onboard loading at the airport was exceeding all expectations. And the thought is we're receiving the benefit of that right now, but we have had 10 years of people before us that have been pulling as hard as they could the cart up the hill. And we need to recognize past and present people that have really helped in the airport. And there's one out in the audience. We won't talk about Mayor Wharton's, but he did his best. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Councilwoman Salisbury.
Your Honor, the Finance Committee met earlier this evening, and other than that, I've not attended any meetings.
All right, thank you. Councilman Peranto?
Your Honor, I have just a couple things. We had the Riverton Airport Board meeting on the 27th, just a couple of days ago. And hopefully we hear a little bit more about it, but wanted to give a shout out to Kyle Butterfield, who's been the Wyoming Association or Airport Coalition president for the last 2 years. And he's just kind of reached the end of his term there. But I think, Kyle, you're going to continue to serve for another 2 years as recent past president. Is that how that works? Okay. But pretty amazing. I understand that the most recent meeting went off without a hitch, and Kyle put a lot of work into that. And it's I'd like to hear a little bit more when it comes to your term. But if you would grace us with that, I'd appreciate it. Kyle's right. Our airport numbers, the way it was put, are extremely strong. We're about 22% higher than we were last year, with ridership just close to 2,500 this month. I think a couple of days ago it was at 2,063 or something like that. I'm not sure of the exact number off the top of my head. But year to date, we're just doing really well. And at the airport meeting too, we discussed a little bit about how United Airlines is making some big moves in terms of their hub. Chicago's always been their official hub, and we all know that they have a big presence at the Denver International Airport, but they're having an even greater presence there, and that will essentially become their hub as well. And really what that means, though, is the cascading effect of United's presence so close to Wyoming and their ability to put money into the Wyoming market. Because it's just growing, and it's growing not just in Riverton, it's growing in Rock Springs and Gillette and throughout the state. So I think United is seeing that. They're investing a lot in Wyoming and in routes to and from Wyoming. So I think that's just painting or continuing to paint a positive picture that's been presented over the last couple of months. It's really pretty amazing, especially when you go back to our previous highest ridership back in 2007, which was close to, I think it was close to 1,500, I think. Yeah, about just shy of 1,500. And then we reached another peak back in 2021, which again was close to 1,500. And now we're well over 2,000. It's pretty amazing. And hopefully we get some more exact numbers as the month is finished. But with that, Your Honor, I haven't attended any other meetings, and appreciate it.
Thank you. Well, I'm glad you're here, and thank you for that report. Mr. Bailey?
Thank you. I, again, also was at the airport board meeting, and again, all really good, exciting things going on there, and our numbers keep improving. And so it's exciting. The 2 flights a day, I had the opportunity to fly out for a meeting last week and both going out and coming back, the flight was just almost full. There was only a few seats that were open, so that's a good sign. Also this weekend, I was at downtown Main Street for the Fall Festival, which they had a great turnout, lots of different booths and things to do and things to eat and all kinds of people with crafts and that kind of stuff. It was a great turnout. Lots of fun stuff going on, and it was great to see people getting out, and I think Saturday it almost hit 100 degrees, so I guess you didn't need a jacket at least, so. And that's all I've had since our last meeting. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Councilwoman Borders.
Last but not least.
Yes.
Your Honor, I haven't had any meetings aside from the Finance Committee meeting earlier. I do want to take a minute just to recognize our city staff, the senior staff and the employees and the job that you do. You all do an incredible job, and I don't think you get enough recognition for that. So I just want to publicly say thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Butterfield.
Thank you, Your Honor. I do have a few items to make note of. The application period for the optional 0.5% tax for economic development, which is managed by the EDGE Committee, just recently closed. Ms. Harris confirmed that there were 6 applications received for the month, and those applications will be reviewed by the EDGE Committee on October 10th here at City Hall at 6 p.m. The public is welcome to attend that meeting and hear from not just the applicants, but also the committee members as well as they review those applications. I'd also like to highlight our administrative services team. This last week, they've been doing a lot of prep for our audit and preparing financials. And our audit will start on October 14th, which is a lengthy process, a very necessary process, and I'm very proud also of our team in the sense that they're always prepared, they're very transparent, and it requires a significant amount of work on the part of Ms. Harris and her team, and so I want to thank her in advance for that. While we're on the topic of appreciation, pleased that we were able to do an employee appreciation event on Saturday. And we had nearly 80 attendees in total. That included our employees and their family members. And it was a great opportunity to just show our team's appreciation for the work that they do. And thank you, Council, for supporting that event and allowing us to put it on. I think it meant a lot to our teams. The Fix Our Road Citizens Committee meeting will be held October 14th. And we invite the public to attend that as well, because that is an opportunity to learn about future construction projects, but maybe more importantly, as a member of the public, to provide feedback to your committee that is set to give you recommendations. It's also important to note that at the next business meeting of the City Council, that is October 15th, the Public Works team will be providing a construction update, and we'll focus a lot on how the optional 1% tax has been utilized this last construction season, and that will be a good opportunity for members of the public who are curious about how those optional 1% tax monies have been used to see a report from our Public Works team on that in that regard. The Public Works team also recently completed the triennial drill at the airport. This is something that is required by the FAA, especially when you have a certain number of commercial passengers that operate from your airfield. Every 3 years, the airport staff puts on this drill. It's an emergency response drill where there's coordination with multiple emergency responders within the county. And Mr. Eggleston noted that there were 80 people that participated in this drill. The majority of them volunteers. In fact, the
CWC girls basketball team.
The basketball team served as victims of the emergency event and were wonderful volunteers. And I want to say, again, thanks to our team and then the community members that supported that triennial drill. I don't know if anyone's noticed, but it is Chief's birthday today, and I love the opportunity to embarrass him a little bit and thank him for being here on his birthday. I did overhear a hallway conversation between two employees about who was older and who was younger, and I will not disclose one way or the other. But happy birthday, Chief, and thank you for what you're doing. As it relates to the police department, we continue our efforts to fill our vacancies. I'm very pleased to report that one applicant has cleared background, and we look forward to swearing a new patrol officer in on your business meeting on October 15th, as well as a new dispatcher on October 15th. On Monday, there will be 5 interviews for the patrol officer position. 4 of those interviews are of laterals or existing patrol officers with other agencies that have applied with ours, and 1 will be a new entry-level position. And you'll notice that in front of you on the dais are these pamphlets. Ms. Harris and Mr. Batista attended the WAMCAT conference, and that is a Robert's Rules of Order quick reference sheet. That's something you can keep in your drawer there, and we appreciate their attendance, and then also bringing back the knowledge that they're learning from their conferences to the city.
We were guessing if this was someone from the community that thought we had maybe had a passive-aggressive attempt to tell us we needed to work on our parliamentary procedure.
No, it was just your staff being passive-aggressive. No, we tease in that regard, but I think it's a great reference. I appreciated that she made one of those available for me as well. As it relates to the airport, I appreciate Council Member Peranto's lead-in. Yes, I did have the privilege to serve on the board for the Wyoming Airports Coalition, and I appreciate your support as I did that. I was appointed president of that group at the very same time that I transitioned from Public Works Director to City Administrator, and I appreciated that you allowed me to stay involved with the Airports Coalition group. Our conference that we just recently had was a wonderful event in Saratoga. We had a record number of attendees, a record number of sponsors, and it was a great opportunity for members of not just our airport, but other airports to network and learn best practices. We also had the privilege of having Senator Larry Hicks in attendance to give us an update on legislative matters, and that's something that the Airport Coalition has focused on heavily, and that is ensuring cities and airports have a voice in Cheyenne.
Not to interrupt too much, Mr. Butterfield, but Mr. Eggleston also had a report regarding that as well.
Thank you, Your Honor. And not to echo what Kyle's already said, but he won't do it himself, so I would like to commend Kyle. We appreciate the service he's provided, the leadership that he's provided to the Wyoming Airports Coalition. He'll tell you it's a big team effort, and it is. It really is a team effort, but it takes a strong leader to get that team together. And Kyle's instrumental in that, not from just a local, state market, but nationally. The Wyoming Coalition is recognized in Washington, D.C. as kind of the go-getters and the people that can get stuff done. That's why the surrounding regional markets look for Wyoming for their guidance and our expertise that this gentleman will provide. Lunches, lunch and learn. That's his brainchild. Took a lot of people to help put that on, but he's the guy.
Well, and I also noted that Ms. Harris had a picture where he had gotten recognition for everyone on the board except himself.
Right.
Which I guess is what he does. But anyway.
Kind of like carrying the team's water here at City Hall.
Yeah.
Your Honor, this is becoming sufficiently embarrassing for me.
Good.
Oh, I'm not done yet.
We could sing for He's a Jolly Good Fellow and then follow up with Happy Birthday for the Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Eggleston, and thank you, everyone. More importantly, there also at the next business meeting, so October 15th, there will be a public meeting as it relates to the Level 1 study, the Water Master Plan, that will be here at City Hall at 5:30 p.m. we would really love the public's participation in that. This study is something that is supported by the state of Wyoming, and it's critical as we look forward to our future and development, and maybe more importantly, ensuring that the water we provide our residents is safe and clean. So please attend that, because it will project the next 20 years of infrastructure improvements and needs as it relates to the water system. Your Honor, with that, I'm at a loss at this point. I appreciate the kind words. They were unnecessary, and I'll leave it there.
All right, well, thank you. Well, not thank you for like leaving it there, but. Force committee meeting, what was the time for that, just for folks to be able to add it to their calendars?
11 a.m.
Okay, and then just a reminder about the Water Master Plan meeting, that's at 5:30 on Tuesday. So if you're wanting something to do on your Tuesday evening, October 15th, before you come to the city council meeting that I know is such a big draw for our public here, you could go to that meeting prior to, then go grab some dinner and then come back. We will not be serving you dinner at the Water Master Plan meeting. Okay.
Just water.
Just water, if you're lucky. We're not going to be serving bottled water, are we? That might be a little bit weird if we're talking about. I also had the opportunity to attend the Employee Appreciation movie. It was a unique idea. We tend to do a once a year either get together or something with our employees. Traditionally, it had been around Christmas time. We'd recognize people that had reached 30 years or 25 years or any other number divisible by 5. I don't know why we have such significance to that, but that's how we do things. And then we would also enjoy a festive holiday meal. And that was a lot of fun, but it's turned into sometimes, I think, a burden. And so I think it wasn't feeling much like an appreciation thing for our employees, but was feeling more like it was something that they were having to do a lot of work for. So the senior staff kind of got together, put their heads together and said, well, what can we do to show appreciation to our employees? And it was very fun. We had, like you said, about 80 people there. It was good to be able to see everyone there. It was a fun movie to watch. It was my understanding that we weren't going to get refills of the soda, but I convinced the young person who was running concessions that I should have a refill. I didn't convince her. She just said, I said, how much should I pay you for this? And she said, don't worry about it. I may have gone back more than once. And then I also had the chance to attend the Fall Festival. They were right around the same time. That was a lot of fun. I'll tell you, any opportunity we have to shut down Main Street is a good opportunity. We had a lot of people that were out there, had a lot of different booths. I enjoyed going around and talking to folks, stopped by the Kiwanis booth and got not a walking taco, something. It was good. And just had a lot of fun at that with my family, and got to stop by some vendors. And I will say I appreciate those events and look forward to them every year, and I think they're good opportunities to bring people into the community, and I hope we can continue to do that. We also had an FCAG meeting just recently. For those that don't know, FCAG is the Fremont County Association of Governments, basically a collaborative organization between Riverton and the other communities in Fremont County. Really, one of the biggest things that we've been talking about is different ways we can ensure that our policies make sense for FCAG. And Tim Nichols, who is the FCAG and a WRTA administrator, has been putting a lot of work into making sure that we have policies in place that ensure that we are protecting the public, we have safe drivers, we have good drivers, good employees that are getting their work done, and making sure that you have safe ways to get to and from different locations. So we talked some about those policies, approved a couple of changes. Other than that, though, didn't really have a lot of earth-shattering or changing things going on with FCAG. We did hear from the 1% sales tax PAC at FCAG, and I think that's about the 4th time I've seen that presentation, which was good. They do a good job. But I did tell them they need to work on maybe song and dance routine. I don't know. Need to just make it more exciting. Roads are exciting. Maybe they're not. I don't know. Farmers Market over at City Park is wrapping up. And so one of the things they do every year is they'll have a produce competition. And somebody brought in we had a couple of pumpkins that were brought in. We had something that I thought was a ginger root at first, and it turned out it was a really misshapen potato. I don't know if you've ever confused a potato for ginger root, but that was unique. But we also were able to taste some desserts, and I will say that's probably one of the highlights of my year is tasting desserts. They ask me to judge every year, and I just hope that continues, and it was a fun event. Had an opportunity to attend a coffee club with Grace Andrus, with Edward Jones. That was a lot of fun over at Brown Sugar. And so appreciate the invite there and appreciated getting to talk to some of our citizens there. That's about all that I've been up to for the last 2 weeks. Communication from the floor is what we have next. If anyone in the audience wishing to address the council about an item that is set for a public hearing, we will make sure that you have time set aside to be able to talk to us about that item. If you want to talk about something that's not set for a public hearing, but is yet an item that's on the agenda, generally speaking, we allow folks to be able to comment from the floor. Just get my attention and feel free to come up and speak. If you speak then, if you speak now, either way, I'd ask you to keep your comments to 5 minutes if you're an individual, 10 minutes if you're a part of a group. I'd ask you to keep to general rules in terms of decorum and parliamentary procedure, which is to address all comments and questions to the chairman, refrain from the use of individuals' names, stay addressed to the item under consideration, and would ask you to also refrain from making comments of a personal nature that reflect on the character or conduct of a committee member or another speaker, name-calling, personal criticism, ridicule. Anyway. If you'd like to speak, please come on up, and if you could let us know your name, and if you're with an organization, the organization you're with, the floor is yours.
Hi, I'm Carol Harper. I am just, this is more of an inquiry type of thing. I was wondering if any of you knew the status on the Riverton rescue. As you know, we had freezing temperatures last night, and I'm just wondering what happened with the feasibility study that was supposed to be done about the rescue. I did a write-up for County 10 back in March about it, and they were moving forward on the study. And from what I understand, $18,000 was raised for that study. I guess WRTA donated a van, Frontline Motors donated $1,000 or something. And so I was trying to do some research, and I noticed that the last post on the Riverton Rescue Facebook page was dated May 24th. And it was about some kind of community meeting, but there's no further information about what happened with the feasibility study. So I was just going to kind of bring it towards whoever might know.
So the feasibility study was done at the request of the Wyoming Rescue Mission.
Okay.
And I think the plan, and I'm not 100% sure, and I don't know if we have any members from the Riverton Rescue Mission board here tonight, and it doesn't look like we do. I think the plan was for a member of the Wyoming Rescue Mission to make his report to the council in November. But I'm trying to find that out for sure. There was rumor that there was going to be a report tonight, but nobody here has attended to report on it, so I'm assuming that is not the case.
Also, I was just wondering, in the interest of time, I don't know if we're going to have more freezing temperatures before that time, but will the transportation to and from the warming huts be the only option this winter, or will that be?
That's all we have right now.
That's all we have right now? Okay.
Yep.
All right.
And there's also a homeless shelter that is, that the tribe maintains for tribal members to use, and so that's an option as a more permanent thing rather than the warming huts for persons that qualify, but that's up to the tribes as to how to use that. And And then the police department, I think, intends to drive people to the warming huts as needed and as requested. That van, I imagine there's still going to be members of the Riverton Rescue Mission that are going to be transporting folks like they did last year, but I'm not sure of that. So I'm hoping we can get somebody here to report in November.
Okay,
I think
cool.
it turned into a little bit of a who's going to blink first in terms of between them and the
Okay.
Wyoming Rescue Mission, and
Right.
is going to actually come and report. So
Okay. In the meantime, I'm just kind of curious as to, boots on the ground type of thing. What can the community do? What can I do? What can I to help? I know that the Kiwanis has a coat drive, and there's all kinds of opportunities for boots, coats, mittens, and everything. But what can the community do? I'd like to get it out there. Of what can.
well, there's other organizations that help homeless individuals. Of course, there's Eagles Hope. There's the Help Center
Right.
associated with the Episcopalian Church. And also, if last year is any indication of this year, they would probably still welcome donations either of food, meals over at the warming hut,
Okay.
or also blankets or those kinds of things would probably be welcome as well.
Okay.
So if you're looking for ways you can help homeless members of the community, those are some ideas.
Okay. Great. Thank you very much.
But hopefully I will get on them. I
Okay.
actually just had a conversation about that yesterday,
Uh-huh.
and
Okay.
we'll get something from them.
My biggest concern is the cold and people being exposed and everything. And we get some calls in the winter about that, and I have a heart for that kind of stuff. In the
Well, and it's hard to believe that it could get that cold when, like Mr. Bailey said, it was 100 degrees.
I know,
It's
right?
also Wyoming, so it can get that cold pretty quick.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mayor, Council, good evening. Karen Johnson. In an effort to better understand some of the city's expenditures and the position that I'm in, I've been looking through some of the finance packets, and on one of them, there's a charge on one of the credit cards for $795 to a company called PORAC. And I'm just wondering if anyone can educate me on what that is.
Ms. Harris, do you have any answer on that?
I can. Ms. Johnson, can you give me the approximate date or the month of the statement that you see?
Sure. It was charged 531, PORAC out of California.
Mia, I can answer.
Great, thank you.
That is for recruitment expense or advertisement for vacant police officer positions. It's one of the venues we've used to advertise our vacancies.
May I speak to the chief?
Sure, go for it.
Okay, you just had said address you, so I wanted to make sure.
Yeah, it's just parliamentary procedure, but you could address me and he can answer. It's kind of a weird way to do things, but however you like to do it.
That's fine. I was just wondering, so just so I understand correctly, so we're advertising in California for police officers? Because everything that I found on there said that this is lobbyists that work glove in hand with Sacramento and Washington for policies, California policies.
Go ahead, Chief.
Thank you. So we've advertised on Indeed, on Facebook, on PORAC, International Association of Chiefs of Police. So those are all either email or different advertisements where we targeted where officers from other areas may be looking for other opportunities. So a lot of agencies will advertise on one or all of those. So peace officer, I think what the acronym stands for. It's
Police Officers Association of it's Police Officer Research Association of California. And they work collaboratively with elected leaders, public safety experts, and community organizations to advance policies on the behalf of lobbyists at state and national levels.
yeah,
I'm just wondering what the $795 got us when we can do that for free over NCIC in an AM message.
we can't advertise on NCIC for employment. So PORAC has, if you go to PORAC, job opportunities, you would have seen for that time period, Riverton Police Department at the top of the search engine. So we paid for priority, those looking for employment at the very top.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, that's all.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Just for folks that are watching at home or are curious, what's the acronym? How did you spell that, Chief?
PORAC, P-O-R-A-C.
All right. Anyone else? Okay. Administrative Services Director, Ms. Harris, could you please read the consent agenda items by title only?
Yes, Your Honor. Approval of the minutes, September 17th, 2024, regular council meeting. Approval of the minutes, October 1st, 2024, Finance Committee meeting. Approval of the Finance Committee recommendations, October 1st, 2024.
Are there any items requiring further discussion?
Your Honor, the Finance Committee met this 6:45 to pay the amount of $415,170.84. Manual checks in the amount of $65,763. Payroll and liabilities from September 24th in the amount of $485,412.19 for a total of $966,346.03.
All right.
Included in that amount was TAD reimbursement to Riverton Rendezvous Balloon Committee of $10,000.
Thank you.
Which was budgeted.
Thank you. And thank you for discussing that during the Finance Committee. I entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Larson with the motion, Councilwoman Salisbury with the second. Any discussion, amendments? Mr. Bailey?
Your Honor, I'll abstain from the Bailey Enterprises line item on the Finance Committee report.
And Your Honor, I'll abstain from any TCI warrants paid.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 I vote aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Optional 0.5% excise tax for economic development, recipient presentations. Golden Buffalo, Legacy Foam Solutions, Miller Bulk Foods, Administrative Services Director's report, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. I think there's been a lot of education in the 0.5% sales tax, so I won't go into the detail or the history about how the tax came about. Since the inception of the tax, the city has received over $2.7 million and distributed slightly more than $2.4 million. Tonight, we have recipients here to present the status of their project and how the funding has benefited their organizations and the local community. With that, I would like to introduce representatives of the Golden Buffalo and Legacy Foam Solutions. I believe we had Miller Bulk Foods on the agenda this evening, but I don't see representation in the audience for them. So we will proceed with Golden Buffalo and Legacy Foam Solutions.
Golden Buffalo going to go first?
Yes, thank you, everybody. I got a little printout here. Hopefully I counted correctly.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Whoops.
Thank you.
No, it's just.
So thank you for having us. Just a report on what we've done with our funds. We received these back in '23. August of '23 is when we received the funding. Golden Buffalo received $26,000 in EDGE funding. I've got just a short sheet here on the front as far as how those funds were spent. There's an attachment with each invoice as well to it, which I think I sent these to Mia last year or something, but this way you guys have a copy of them. Our our project was AutoCAD software and 3D printing. So it's the ability to create jewelry much faster is basically the idea behind it. The AutoCAD software is for designing the jewelry, and then a 3D printer actually prints out the jewelry in the medium that you need to either cast it. We could print it in rubber so that someone could actually put a ring on, make sure it looks like what they want, wear it at home, show the spouse, that sort of thing, before we actually cast the piece. So that's in really short version what it does. The design software is the AutoCAD design software from Gravitech, and also their training. The other piece is the 3D printer and the PC to run it. The totals there, $26,139.57. The grant was $26,000. I didn't put on here any of the expenses that we spent on top of the grant funding. I just showed what was spent to cover the grant funding. We probably have another $8,000 to $10,000 in training and equipment, supplies, that sort of thing, but I didn't include those on there. As far as the project itself, we've had some success with the design software as far as getting it going, learning, training our internal staff to use it. Hiring's an issue. We've had advertisements everywhere we can think. There's a couple large jeweler organizations that we advertise on. We've got one reply. And then they found out it was in the middle of Wyoming and said, no, they don't want to move here for less than, $150,000 a year. But so training's been, or finding staff that we want to hire that can specifically do that has been difficult. Janet, my wife's sick tonight. She could explain a ton more of what we've done, but she's been working with the college, Nita specifically, to try to get some of the art students that have a proclivity towards design software and see if we can do some intern type things, which we like that in some ways. In others, I don't love the constant turnover, but you might find that right person. And I actually had a conversation with Shannon Watts, which received some grant funding this year. And he went to a school and got me in touch with the instructor for the school that instructed AutoCAD design. And I've got an email out to him and see if we can find someone. So just finding the employment is tough. Or finding the staff is tough. So we've had to try to do that in-house, and you can only wear so many hats. We've made some progress. The design is neat. We've been able to do some design work, but until we get that flushed out a little bit more, the 3D printers, we can print stuff, but it's not our own design. We just get files and print them. So it's not speeding up as much as we want. That being said, I do think the knowledge that we've had that in advertising, and it's got us to think a little bit differently about custom design work and how we advertise that and where we go with it. And so on the bottom, I just took two things: the sales taxes that we pay every quarter or every month, and the wages that we pay over the year. And if you look at 2022, kind of prior to getting this done for that, and I used 9 months in here. I wanted to compare apples to apples. So I don't want to compare a year of 22 to a year of 23 and 9 months of 24. So we've got 9 months in here of each one of these. Sales taxes in 22, we paid $14,000. 23, we paid $25,000. And then in 24, we paid $33,000, which is roughly a 32% increase in sales taxes paid. And that's the full 5.5%. So 1.5 of that, break that down to 0.5% comes to the city. Not a huge chunk, but definitely working on repaying that grant back, seeing that little bit of money coming in. And then wages paid also, 22, $85,000, 23, $140, and 24, $188. And that is mainly elevating our staff and expecting more from them with the staff that we have. We've added some part-time staff, but being able to ask more and offer more so we can keep the staff on. That's pretty much it in a nutshell. Questions, comments?
Questions for Mr. Post?
Anybody want a job designing jewelry software?
I just have one question with have you guys sold a lot more jewelry with your online stuff?
Yeah, the online has went up drastically. It's kind of funny. Last week we had an order from Delaware for the buffalo. That's really started to kick. We were able to get selected to be in Cowboys and Indians magazine, which I don't know if any of you know that. Mostly it's high-end tourism. And we're in there. They featured the buffalo pieces, the buffalo diamond. It's a diamond that we were able to create in the shape of a buffalo. And that's just kind of kicked off. And so it's pretty interesting. We haven't got any international orders yet. That's our hope next. But both coasts, all in the middle, and the buffalo and the diamond really seem to be kicking off, and the cowboy as well. So
Well,
nice to see that brand.
my daughter ordered a buffalo necklace online. I'm like, why didn't you just go down to the store and
Yeah.
get it?
Because then I have to drive down there. I can order it. Click, click.
Welcome.
But it was beautiful. It was nice.
Good.
So.
Thank you.
Has changed, hasn't it?
It has. You know, and we, you know, Cody, we have a store in Cody as well. And Cody's sales tax is 4%. Riverton's is 5.5%. I'm a big supporter of the tax. You know, I think it's important that we keep it going for businesses like ours. Personally, I would rather see it, and this is just going to get my soapbox for a second. Sorry, I got the podium and I got 5 minutes, so I'm going to use it.
I didn't even start the timer, so.
Oh, good, I can start now. As you know, I'm a banker. For me, I would love to see this as a 0% loan. I would love to see it as a way to get bank funding. You know, one of the biggest problems that a new business or a small business has, and speaking for our own business and as well as the number of clients that I have come in, is the down money. You know, the ability to come up with that capital to get it started. And banks want to have some sweat in there. We want to know that you're committed to this thing. And if the EDGE funding can step in, now that we're looking at cutting that funding down, that percentage that's going to the individual economic development, we can take that and fund it and then refund it, you know, and use that over and over. That would have worked for us, honestly. You know, if I could have, we'd spent so much capital on acquiring the business and equipment and all that, I didn't have any capital for a loan. If I would have had the capital for the down money on a loan, I could have got the loan. You know, but if I can get it and not get the loan, well, you know, I'm a businessman. I'm going to do that. But I don't think that would be something that wouldn't be bad to look at and think about. And it's a way to keep that money rolling instead of going out and then it's gone. If our project fails, it fails. You know, if we're getting some payback on that, I think it would help spur that economic development longer than 12 months, 18 months, 24 months.
And you had talked about getting a jeweler here, and I remember that was one of the discussions and one of the things that had been said that was going to be your goal. And so I appreciate you reporting on that. It's not a matter of not having the equipment. It's not a matter of same issues that I think a lot of people have. It's difficult to attract folks to a small town in Wyoming.
And we're adjusting that. We wanted to go with someone that had 5 to 10 years experience, a master jeweler. That's probably not going to happen. You know, we might get lucky. You never know. We'll follow whatever he tells us to do. But we're switching a little bit of that intern and maybe trying to find someone and train them up and bury our jeweler in training and jewelry. So we'll see.
Well, sounds good.
All right.
Any other questions?
All right.
Thanks for the report. Appreciate it, Mr.
Thank y'all.
I guess that means it's you, Mr. Larson.
Thank you. How's everybody doing? Good, thanks.
Great.
Thank you.
I'm Reg Larson with Legacy Foam Solutions. Thank you for having us here to report on the EDGE grant funding. On behalf of our company, page 1 of my presentation is just kind of a quick overview of how we got to be here in the first place. Legacy Foams is a spray foam insulation and overall insulation company based in Riverton, Wyoming. We began or formed our business at the end of 2020. Ordered some equipment, had to wait a little bit for COVID for it to come in, but we began operations on April 4th of 2021. Prior to the EDGE grant funding and me coming in to put in our name in the hat here, we had an average of 3 full-time individual employees and utilized several consultants to operate our business. We were awarded the EDGE grant funding in August of 2023, as you know, and we received the funding in September of 2023, the actual physical money. Moving on to the second page, local economic impact as a result of the EDGE funding to Legacy Foam. After receiving the money, Legacy Foam ordered our newly awarded spray foam unit from our manufacturer out in Rutledge, Georgia. We were awarded $90,000 and the unit came in at $110,000. Legacy Foam came up with the difference, wired the money out, and we're eagerly awaiting to get the new equipment in, put it to work, right? Just after that, I went to my desk and I was so dang excited this happened that I didn't know what to do. So I started thinking about scaling up and staging up, and I ran down to Fremont Motors and bought a new half-ton Chevy truck for the company. And that might not seem like, you know, it's a very normal thing to do in the operations of a business. All of our jobs are somewhere else besides our shop, and so we've got to mobilize every day. But I would not have went down and bought that pickup if I had not received the funding, period. There was no reason for it. We were operating just fine with the pickups that we had. We actually had 2 big trucks to pull, so it was a perfect purchase to bring the crews and our support trailers to the job. So here I'm thinking a couple months down the road, and we went and made that purchase directly in our hometown. We then received the foam unit in November of 2023 physically. It shipped out from Georgia. We paid a transport company $5,000 to drop it off in Cheyenne, Wyoming, and I went and picked it up. We brought it back to town. We'd been in business for 2.5 years, almost 3 years, and we were renting down in Monroe. And so we could not fit both trailers inside of our shop. And of course, this was coming along, but at this point, it became evident to me that we needed to purchase a shop so that we could put both units inside. The foam has to be kept at a controlled temperature environment. So the foam, the trailers, the lines always want to be around 70 degrees. So it's a must. Well, we've been renting, like I said. I went and identified a shop and went and talked to the guy. And for what we were paying per month, I was going to have to come up with $50 or $60 or $70,000 to make it math out that we could pick up the shop and cash flow wise be somewhere close. So I kind of went back to my business partner, defeated, and I said, oh man, I don't know what we're going to do. Maybe we keep one of these outside. We're going to have to come up, you know, we're going to need to save up for 6 months to a year to have the money down to buy a shop court. Maybe we'll go rent somewhere and store this thing through the winter. Well, I ended up talking to a local entrepreneur, and he had been trying to sell a shop and a house, but had had no bites. And so I just was honest with him. I said, I don't have the down payment money, but I need a new home, and I've got 2 units, and I've got all this opportunity. And he said, well, we're at a position where we need to sell. I can waive the down payment. I will finance you privately. Let's get this thing done. And so Legacy Foam, through our entrepreneur, spirit, found a home. We purchased a shop down on 2nd Street, Monroe, the old Kinder Morgan building, and laid down permanent roots in our community, again, as a result of. So you got another local business guy that freed up some capital, took a little burden off his monthly cash flow. We end up getting a permanent home. And last but not least, I was worried because of the scope of all of this that our landlord, losing us as a tenant, may suffer. And somebody moved in the day we moved out. So I felt like it was a win all the way around. Additionally, Legacy Foam at the time had a meeting with our tax advisor, and they advised us to form a wholly owned subsidiary as a holding entity for real estate. And so, same thing. None of this would have happened if this trailer hadn't landed in our backyard. We formed a new entity that purchased the shop. So you've got a whole nother business. There's no employees. Elisa and I run it. But again, something new came out of it in the entrepreneurial spirit. So we purchased the shop in January from a local business. The shop also has a rental house on it. So in that spirit, I've talked to 2 other local business people about adding to our portfolio under the same terms we did the first time, because we don't have the money down to go just start buying houses. So we'll see what comes of that, but it's been a fun little side project. We have another entity, and we're looking to grow it, all aside from operating the trailer that we received. And then lastly on this slide, just this summer, a small give back we were able to do was down at the soccer fields, the new facility down by Majors Avenue. I saw Josh Saltzgaber down there. They were erecting a small bathroom facility and a pump house, I believe is what it is. And I went down, gave Josh a handshake, and Legacy Foam put in approximately $3,500 to $4,000 in foam in that building. It was unsolicited. It was at our suggestion. Josh said, absolutely, let's do that. And we did. And it'll be there long after I'm gone. And it was just a small token of our appreciation for what they're doing down there for the youth. It was tied back to the EDGE funding that George received as well, and we were proud to be a part of it. So, moving on to the next slide. Increased operations. Legacy Foam began lifting season in the spring and summer of '24 in addition to our full-time spray foam schedule. So that's exactly what we came and asked you for the ability to do, and it came into play. It took some time to build a new segment of our business. We sponsored and presented the Wyoming Department of Transportation's Crew Leaders Spring Meeting in Casper, Wyoming on the 9th and 10th. I thought it was a great opportunity to go out in front of all of these guys, all the crew leaders. I mean, I didn't know that the state owns so many vehicles in that parking lot of YDOT trucks. But I gave out 200 hats, a lot of hats, a lot of money in hats. And I knew those guys would all be wearing my hats around the state, as soon as the next couple of days after that meeting broke. We're in discussions with a few of those guys about some projects. Their budgets were already decided for the year when I presented, but it got our foot in the door, guys. We've sprayed for the state, or we've done lifting installations for the state training facility in Lander as part of this initiative, and we have another upcoming spray. We also switched over to a medium density foam. It's not an insulating foam like you would see in the walls in the shops that we do. It's more for roofing and for some oil-filled commercial tank spraying. We've got projects coming up for Wesco operating west of town out on the Lander cutoff to Fort Washakie. That's an outdoor spray coming up that this system utilizes. And then I'm going out to the gas plant out at Lysite tomorrow or Thursday, and they've got a list of stuff for us. When we went to the crew leaders meeting, I put together another 8-page slide of just services aside from foam that this trailer allows us to do. I also put together a marketing initiative of that, and we're starting to see some results of that. So really pushing to grow this thing. And then lastly, it comes down to the numbers, appointment numbers during the first half of '24. Really leading up to about a year ago, we were 3 people full-time. We had gotten up to 4 people when we came and asked for this funding, have had some turnover and such, but we've maintained that and starting mid-summer, we picked up our 5th employee and have had on full-time since. We've had some turnover also, but I got very, very, very lucky in what I stumbled into. I went up to Job Corps and met Jerry Prigine, I believe is how you pronounce her last name. And Legacy Foam has a MOU with Job Corps. I brought in a student in July to make my 5th employee that was on the cusp of graduating. So he did a couple-week internship with Legacy Foam. We hired him full-time. He graduated job attached and got extra money at graduation. He was so thankful that he was working for us. And he's buying his first pickup truck after working for us for 4 months this next week. He saved up the money. Local kid. I actually just went and attended their luncheon on Friday with some local businesses at Job Corps. And 60% of the attendees are from Colorado, 30-something from Wyoming, and the rest. We've just brought on a second intern for this period. This last Monday, I was short a guy, and I called Jerry, and I said, Jerry, I think I'm going to need another guy. It's late in the week. I need him Monday. And she said, no, you don't understand. You have an MOU. You can call me anytime and get an employee or 10 employees anytime you ever want, Reggie. And I just was blown. I mean, it stopped me in my tracks because we've had some bigger projects. It's like, wow, I need 3 guys on Wednesday. So we've got the full-time employment, but I can add or take away from that anytime I need. What a nice little tie for something that, is right in our backyard. So we're proud to be working with them. Again, we went up and talked at their luncheon this last Friday. I've got my second guy in the mix. He graduates in a month, and we'll see. I think we're just going to keep adding. So that's all I've got.
Any questions?
I just have one thing to say.
Go
It's
ahead.
kind of become a pattern, but your boys played excellent on Friday night at the football game. And
Thank you.
Our EDGE funding is contributing to a better football team.
Well, you'll see Legacy Foam on the donation board up there. I have 2 boys playing on the varsity football team, and I could not be a prouder father of their efforts. We lost the game Friday, and they were so down, but boy, those kids playing their hearts out. I just texted Lynn Hart. I said, man, you've made our Friday nights so much more enjoyable. And we're going to win some and lose some, but thank you. It's humbling
played well.
to see how well they're doing. So,
Well, thank you. Appreciate it, Mr. Larson, and appreciate your report.
yeah,
Very much appreciate seeing how much a lot of these funds are being used for collaboration between a lot of local businesses too, so.
yeah, and I think it's just going to kind of keep growing for us. We're very humbled by this and thankful for it, and it's our duty to do the things we said we would do, and we're doing it.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thanks.
Larson. All right. Public hearing and consideration of ordinance 24006. Now, that's the right number this time, right? Second reading, jaywalking. Police chief's report, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. The police department has responsibility to enforce municipal code ordinances as relates to the safety of movement of traffic and pedestrians in the city. In response to increased number of complaints and incidents involving people crossing roadways in an unsafe manner, staff recommends council adopt language to the Riverton Municipal Code to address this issue. The proposed ordinance 24006 states that this or creates this language and centers on the appropriate use of crosswalks. The proposed ordinance comes after staff research state statutes and codes from other municipalities relating to jaywalking offenses. From the first reading on the ordinance, we did fix the typo of the repeat in section 10.12.190, section C, where there was a repeat of language that was brought out at the last meeting. That's been completed, and then there's no direct financial impact in passing ordinance 24006. That's the correction for the proper ordinance, Your Honor, and for any questions.
Thank you. Administrative Services Director, Ms. Harris, would you please read 24006 by title only?
Yes, Your Honor. Proposed ordinance number 24-006, an ordinance amending Title 10, Vehicles and Traffic, Chapter 10.12, Additional Traffic Regulations, to create Section 10.12.190, Crosswalks of the Riverton Municipal Code, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. I'd entertain a motion to adopt ordinance 24006 on second reading.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilwoman Borders, second by Councilman Bailey. Discussion, amendments? Oh, yes. You can come on up if you'd like. Same as I'd said before, if you can tell us your name into the microphone and if you're with a group, which group you're with.
My name's Bruce Caminga. I'm the owner of Specialty Marine. I've had some real experience with jaywalking ordinances back where I come from. They were grossly misused. I don't know what the intent of this is here. Typically, it doesn't make safer communities. What it does is it allows law enforcement to do some type of stop and frisk and use this as an excuse to try and identify somebody or harass. And my question is, what is the purpose of this? Is it to make a safer community? Is it to generate revenue? Are there going to be citations issued, money collected because they jaywalked? Is it what happens when kids run across the street in a residential area and they don't use the street corners? There was a recent incident back in Michigan where law enforcement actually broke into a house to grab the kids that basically kind of ran 45-degree across the street. So my question is, what is the purpose of this ordinance in this town?
I think what we've discussed with this has been concerns expressed, and it's been particularly on North Federal. And it's been kind of in front of and around from City Park to about City Hall. We tend to have a lot of folks that will just leave the curb, no warning, no idea if they're coming or going or exactly what's going on. And we've had concerns expressed by community members. That's really what started this. Expressed to the chief, expressed to me, other folks. And so we were looking at it, and the chief was realizing that the one that we had in terms of our ordinance for jaywalking really was insufficient. And so that's really what it's meant to capture. I understand the concern. I do. I mean, I guess I would say there's already been for the most part, I will tell you, most of the folks that cause issues in this town are known to police.
Yes.
Not going to be stopping somebody and identifying them.
I understand that. It's just, it can be, if it's used that way today, it can be elaborated upon as we go. I mean, are you going to restrict this to crosswalks across Federal and Main, or is it going to apply to all the streets in the city? I mean, how are you going to enforce it? What are the policies going to be? What are the fines going to be? Are the people going to be able to pay the fines? Because wasn't it last year that you guys had to write off $3,000-$4,000 worth of tickets that never got paid or something? I don't remember. So,
yeah,
I mean, are we just increasing the load that the law enforcement has to have? There's a lot of things here that come into question, I guess, for me. So
yeah, sure.
Your Honor.
Mr. Bailey?
We had discussed just having this on designated corridors. So again, Main, Federal, maybe Sunset, or, high traffic type areas where this is a problem. We're really not trying to say, okay, on Bighorn Avenue in a residential area, you got to come down and cross at the crosswalk. This is strictly focused on controlling pedestrian traffic in these high traffic areas. I know Federal at Sunset has 23,000 cars a day go by, and you're driving down Federal and there's people just walking across without even looking, and we're gonna have people getting killed.
yeah.
So we've got to figure out a way to somewhat control it.
Well, and I understand that, and I'm not objecting to it. There's a lot of questions that come to my mind based on past experience in other municipalities.
And I seriously doubt that there's going to be anybody sitting there just waiting for a crosswalk violation.
No.
I think,
Well,
but you can't just arrest somebody for being dumb and walking across Federal and not at an intersection, not waiting for the light, not whatever.
yeah.
You have to have a rule that they're breaking before you can
Right.
scold them in some way.
Right. I guess that again comes back into play with, okay, what are the, have you created any policies, enforcement policies, like, Federal, Main, Sunset, some of these other places, Broadway? I mean, should that be a part of this ordinance, or, I mean, how's that going to play out, I guess? That would be my concern.
Well, I can tell you the language of it, and I will say, in terms of, if you'd want to be able to read this and kind of look at it and consider it, you're definitely welcome to do it.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what it has written there right now. And before I do that, let me, I guess, address one thing. In terms of what this could mean for the police department, that more so has to do with ensuring that we're not having that sort of operation being encouraged by our police department.
Yes.
Any ordinance could be abused to the extent that it's being used as an excuse like that with stop and frisk or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't have concerns about that with our police department, but at the same time, it can happen. And if it does, that's an issue we need to address with the chief. with the supervisors, that kind of thing. It's not something where we'd say, let's get rid of this law that's making it so that the police can abuse it. It's like, well, that's the issue with the officer.
Right.
I will tell you the language here, so just so you're aware, every pedestrian upon a roadway at any point other than a marked crosswalk has to yield the right of way. I'm just simplifying.
Yep.
Vehicles upon the roadway so near as to constitute an immediate hazard. So in other words, it's not saying you can't cross, but it is saying if there's a vehicle there, you've got to yield to the vehicle. It's not just, pedestrians have the right of way everywhere. You
Right.
don't have the right of way if you're not in a crosswalk.
Right.
And then it says, not suddenly leave a curb or other place of safety and walk or run into the path of a vehicle that's so close as to constitute an immediate hazard.
And
Which is don't jump out in front of vehicles, which you would think people wouldn't do, but sometimes people aren't the smartest.
well, I see it by my shop all the time.
Yeah. Not unnecessarily stop or delay traffic while in a marked or unmarked crosswalk. So in other words, you can't sit there and go really slowly through a crosswalk just to mess with people. Do we see that happen very often? Probably not.
No, but I mean, you got, and I've read through the ordinance.
Right.
But you still have a situation where, okay, do we stop or don't we stop, That's, I mean,
Right.
then somebody gets hurt, now you got to assess blame. It's going to be a lot more complicated, I guess, than what, what it shows at face value.
Right. And I agree with you. I mean, one of the things that I think it does capture is if you have somebody who's jumping out in front of a vehicle, we're saying, wait a minute, there's a specific ordinance that says you're not supposed to do that. So when it comes to liability or being able to assess who's at fault for what happened here, well, we've got a city ordinance that specifically says you can't do that. I mean, the reality is this something that I envision we're going to have a lot of citations? No. It's not even jailable. It's just fines.
Yeah.
I imagine it'll come under the bond schedule to something like a $100 fine at most, for the most part. But I hear your concerns. I'm not going to say I haven't had the same ones. And I've also had other people that have been like, why in the world would we have this as an ordinance when we have a lot of other stuff going on?
Yeah.
I guess part of my response to that is this is in response to concerns that have been expressed by members of the public to us.
Okay.
We're trying to be responsive.
Yes.
Just to give you a little bit of a story, our new lieutenant came here and he was going around on a ride-along, and apparently as they were doing the ride-along, somebody had very clearly gone and jaywalked. I mean, they were made it so traffic had to slow down. I think even the vehicle he was in had to slow down. I don't remember. But, and the response was, well, we don't have anything we can do about that. From the officer, right? So, I mean, trying to give them tools, trying to give them ways that we can help keep our community safe. That's all.
So, well, thank you. And
Your Honor.
Yes.
One question. West Main doesn't have the traffic that Federal does.
no, I understand.
I drive that 5 days a week at 8 o'clock in the morning, and the amazing trek is watching people from the east go west, and as I come home, it's west to east. And for them to go over a crosswalk doesn't enter into their heads.
Oh, you mean just
And-
to go across the road?
They just cross the road.
Yeah.
And so I think what it really does is it gives the responsibility, if the pedestrian does that, that is his fault. But it doesn't give us the right to put the foot down on the accelerator and win 20 points. You have to stop. But the police need tools to keep people safe.
Well, and
This is one of our ways of doing it.
right, and it is a tool to, like I said before, maybe assess blame. Okay, who was wrong here and who was right.
Yeah.
It's just, my caution is, like I stated before,
We'll have to triple our police force to do what you're talking about.
yeah,
And the likelihood of that happening
probably like finding a boat mechanic in the desert.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So
I appreciate it, Mr. Kaminga, and
I'm not opposed to it. I'm just,
yeah.
I guess I'm just more cautioning.
venting it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I saw what happened before in the communities I was involved in back east. And, you know, as a tool, you know, we got kids running around late at night. You see them run 45 degree across the road. You need to be able to identify them. Hey, that works. They did the jaywalk, give me their identification. That is a good tool. But when law enforcement, I mean, literally makes up an excuse, well, you know, we saw them walking down the road and you know, they stepped off the curb to the side a little and instead of staying right in the crosswalk. I saw that abuse too. And I saw what constituted a legal arrest. And it's like, you know, I just don't want it to come to that.
I agree.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One more time, only because
Good.
this happened to me, actually. I was fortunate enough this summer to take the ride on the front of a bumper at the intersection of Fremont and Federal. I did do due diligence. I tried to get to the corner and cross appropriately to go to the farmer's market right there, which makes me ask the question, are there going to be additional crosswalks painted if this goes through for people to access where they're going? Or are they going to have to, because that was my issue when I actually crossed. I didn't want to have to go a block down the opposite direction of I was going or 2 blocks the other way. I got to the corner of the intersection, thought I was crossing appropriately, but it was marked improper crossing on the accident report. So is there going to be crosswalks to make it accessible for people? And how many stops in between city streets is that going to cause for passing traffic?
Good point. I think that's definitely something we can look at. And I appreciate that thought, Ms. Johnson. And you're exactly right. Of anyone that can address that, I remember hearing about your incident. Yeah.
And just for the record, I didn't jump out in front of the truck.
I never thought that.
It was a bona fide accident. He was looking north while turning south, and he just didn't see us already in the middle. But it is, I think it would be a good idea if it is, and this is just a suggestion, if it is going to go through, that there are more accessible crossing points for people to use, and that may encourage better foot traffic.
Appreciate it. Good thought. Mr. Bailey?
The language in the ordinance does say at an intersection of 2 streets, does not have to be white lines across the street and all that. So that is considered a crosswalk
Section D.
in the ordinance, that it doesn't have to be a painted, stripes on the road. As long as it's at an intersection of 2 streets, then crossing is considered a crosswalk. Right, yeah.
So, yeah, I'm Jessie Lee, live at 313 North 6th Street East, and I like to get out and walk as much as I can, and walk to the post office and those kind of things. And that question has come up for me too, is do I have to have a painted crosswalk? So I think that needs to be clear in that, because otherwise it takes a. And I do think there should be some added crosswalks on Main Street and not just be at lights, because otherwise, I think it's a good thing that you don't have to have a light every corner on Main Street. On the other hand, traffic tends to go fairly fast, faster than maybe it should be. But I think maybe if there were crosswalks, drivers might be a little more. Because it's like, okay, that light's getting ready to change, and that corner's coming around from Federal. Do I dare step out off the corner? And I guess I would feel safer if there was a painted crosswalk on.
And I will tell you, so every pedestrian upon a roadway at any point other than within a marked crosswalk or within an unmarked crosswalk at an intersection. So if there's an intersection, and we were talking about this with the chief, he was saying, well, because it's the intersection of two roads where we have, for example, the Dairy Queen there across from City Hall,
Exactly.
right out here,
Um.
that would be an unmarked crosswalk. Would it be a good idea, though, if we're going to allow people to cross there to mark it? Yeah, that could, I mean, it's a good thought. I will say, I was just in Laramie the other day, and they have right in front of their equivalent of CES, I guess. I'm trying to remember what it's
Arc Industries.
Arc Industries. They have a crosswalk there that has a light and everything. I don't know if you'd need anything like that, but even if it's just marked. It's a thought. There's a danger both ways. If you put a crosswalk there and then you don't have a light or something else to signal it and it's just plain a crosswalk, there's a concern there about people not stopping even though there is a crosswalk.
You run into that now, Mayor, on Main Street, where we actually put the lights in and people keep running over the sign. Rarely do people stop there, even though that's a marked, very well-marked crosswalk.
With a light.
With a light.
With two lights.
People blow through that intersection or through that crosswalk all the time.
And
Over the curb, too.
and run over the curb.
Often. So it's definitely an issue.
Yeah,
I think it requires some common sense a little bit too. You mentioned the Dairy Queen, that kind of intersects in with the driveway for City Hall. So you probably want to be careful crossing there.
But I do think if we want to pass this and say, hey, we want to take seriously safety of pedestrians on Federal and Main in particular, I think you're right. We could just say, hey, look, we passed this jaywalking ordinance. Our job is done. Or you're right, we could look at it a little bit more and say, what can we do to make it more friendly to pedestrians and safe for pedestrians as well as drivers in those areas, and look at some other options.
well, and understand it. Like I say, I'm not sure where I am allowed to. And I do, at intersections where there's a partial crosswalk, I try to follow the crosswalk rather than going the other direction. Because I figured the crosswalk is kind of a invitation that that's the way I should be going. Yeah, and where I cross the street a lot is a block up. See, that would be 7th crossing Main Street, and it's hard to time it right with the lights coming both ways. Yeah.
Your Honor, and again, I don't think it's reasonable to expect people to, on Federal, if they're at City Hall, either go down to Sunset, at least a block away, or back up to Pershing. So I think it's reasonable to say we should maybe mark some additional crosswalks in between.
Of all the places
So
that we could.
Because, to expect somebody to go a block or two this way, to go across the road to come back another block or two is not going to happen, probably.
Your Honor, question. Whose responsibility is that on Federal and Main? Is that YDOT or city?
Your Honor,
That's what I was just going to say.
any designation of a crosswalk on Federal or Main would need to go through the Department of Transportation.
Well, that'll be fun.
And they also require, a 6 to 8 year study?
You have to have 3 people hit at that location, 2 of them with serious injuries.
1 fatality. I'm being facetious, of course, but that is a process, right, on Federal and Main?
Your Honor, Councilman, that is correct. It is their right-of-way, and they would need to designate where the crosswalks are. I'd also mention that there's a lot of resources and studies as it relates to placement of crosswalks and important considerations, speed being one, number of vehicles being one, whether it's a mid-block crossing, which I would never recommend, or I should say I would recommend in very few instances because the danger to the pedestrian is so high at a mid-block. Federal Highway Association has several resources that we as staff can look at for the areas that we do have jurisdiction. But for Maine and federal, we do not.
Well, and I will say, everything I was saying was certainly not meant to be a dig on YDOT. I think they try to do their job well. I think part of what makes it hard is it always has to be based on some objective kind of thing. And so it's like, that's where it gets a little bit hard, is it's, what do you have as an objective study that you can put that this is a place we could put a crosswalk?
Your Honor, I think too, there's also the safe pathways to school that plays into that as far as where some of the crosswalks are painted.
Right. You can come back up if you want. This is still in the same, this is the same 5 minutes, Karen.
I know.
Just keep
From the
starting the
first
clock.
No, I just have thoughts that are coming to my head. Instead of creating this new jaywalking ordinance, can we just enforce something that we already have, like obstruction of traffic or traffic obstruction? Or is there something like that, because if I'm understanding where it's going, or the vibe that I'm getting from, it's from the people that we're dealing with on a daily basis that are just stepping off the curb and right in front of somebody to cross the street. So is there not an ordinance that's already in place that we can use for traffic obstruction or something along those lines
We
to take care of that?
We have an ordinance regarding obstruction. It's, one of the things is that we have, it's being able to make sure it's something that we can address the issue that we're trying to address. And I think that was kind of part of the point, is being able to, we had a ordinance regarding jaywalking. It didn't quite fit to be able to solve that issue. And so, and this also, for example, has the ability, and this is in section B, if there is a place that we determine is hazardous such that we don't want people to be crossing, you can put up a sign that just says no pedestrian crossing. So, and I agree, if we had the tools there already, I guess my impression from our police department is they don't feel like they have them, and this would be one that they could use.
I see pros and cons to both of it. I mean, the pros are maybe people will pay more attention and it will slow traffic down citywide, that they start to see more crosswalks in, but I think you're going to have a fight with YDOT putting more in and maintaining and making sure that they're bright and people can see them and they're not faded, and
Right.
Yep.
just like we have to do every year, but for citizens and stuff like that. That was my suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you.
We can let them study it, then our kids can worry about it.
Mr. Kosarog, you have an intersection that you're familiar with.
I do. It's the one out here that, oh, I guess, I don't know which one you're talking about, business or personal?
Any of it.
Either.
So I guess I'm a little bit more on the side of Bruce on this one. I just see, you guys are talking a lot about in the gray area and the intent of it, but when it goes on the books for them, it's black and white, and nobody's going to remember what the intent of the council was when it got passed. So unless you guys write in all these little details, I think it's not going to solve the issue. And then that is the question of, so you're after some of the federal traffic issues. Is this going to fix it? So are we just writing a law to write a law? I don't know. That's what I'd leave with that one.
Well, that was kind of my point. We could sit there and pat ourselves on the back and say, hey, look, we made a jaywalking ordinance and that solved all the problems.
Yeah.
It's really only a part of a greater problem that we'd have to figure out. And I agree with you.
Well, and Riverton's always been an automobile-centric town versus a lot of other communities. And it seems like as YDOT's made the corners rounder, people can make the corners faster in their vehicles than ever before. That's made it really hard, actually, at Porter's. You pull out of that parking lot, and they're already coming down Sunset before you even saw them when you started to pull out. So, I mean, we keep moving forward farther and farther to make the automobile a little bit easier, where we do try to, there's people that walk and try to make it easier for them. I think more time and effort put towards that than writing a law could be in the best interest.
Sure.
But I'm with Karen on that one too. There's pros and cons both ways. So.
Well, and I will say, I think focusing on exactly what it says, it doesn't say you have to just cross at a crosswalk. It's saying you got to cross carefully, you know.
I'm with Bruce though, kid. I mean, what happened to street ball?
Yeah.
I mean, game on, game off, and yeah, but it could be used against them.
Yeah.
It's not written exactly all the details of that gray area with the intent when it's written. and the intent will be forgotten.
Well, and I mean, that's what I'm saying in terms of really the only person that this is going to capture is somebody who is not crossing safely.
Right.
That's about it. And that's really the only person that we're wanting to address. That's the only thing that we can.
But
So
it's going to stop them.
no, and that's a good point.
I mean, the people
Yeah,
that are doing it, I don't know that they're going to,
I agree.
I don't know if
No, but it does give law enforcement the ability to contact and address.
If they see it happen in front of them, that they can actually go and do something about it rather than just say, well, okay. I mean,
Can they not stop them and just say, hey, that wasn't very smart, and move about?
Sure.
their day?
sure, except then when you stop them, then that's technically a stop.
Yeah.
And then you get into the Fourth Amendment and
Sure.
And you were picking on somebody. See?
Yeah. Yeah. I agree, impeding traffic, something else. I don't know. I see unless you're going to find every little gray detail
yeah,
down the road, it could be an issue.
I hear you.
Your Honor.
Thank you.
I just have a question. So what is the desired outcome? Is it, what's the punishment going to be? That's unclear still. And I think we really should iron that out before, we
Right.
pass it. I don't know how many times, and I don't drive on Federal a lot. I work up on West Sunset, so, but I can't tell you how many times it's happened to me right here, like by the high-low. There's somebody that wants to walk across, and you see either the traffic is floored going down Federal, like a lot of people do, which is unsafe. So, that plays into it too.
Your Honor.
Chief, I was just gonna go to you.
Sure. So if you looked at the outlay of the way the streets are here, I'll just use Federal because that's a majority of where our complaints are. If you've gone down Federal and you lived here for any more than a month, and you've never had to slam on your brakes, we don't need this. We've had so many nearbys, and we'll use Federal, every place where there's a side street, that's considered an intersection. So any place there's a side street, you can have people walking across all day long, and people would have to yield the right of way to the pedestrian. So what this local ordinance gives us is like, just like what the mayor pointed out, if there's a section of area in the city that like, this is too dangerous for people to cross from this block to this block, it just gives us the authority to, look, see how many accidents we've had, traffic surveys, something like, this is too dangerous for somebody to cross from point A to point B, and we can put up a sign that says, you can cross from this point to this point. We put up a sign, and just like every other city would have, no pedestrian crossing from this point to this point. And then Judge McKee would then set the bail schedule after the resolution, and it understands it's going to be around the normal traffic fine of $80 to $100. But the judge sets that bail schedule. But if you look at the different areas where you do have a pedestrian that's using a crosswalk, and then you have a car that cuts them off and they have to stop or dodge a car, there wasn't a local ordinance that covered that. So this way, somebody that is crossing the crosswalk, and whether it's one of the marked ones or it's not marked, the driver still, as long as they've already entered the intersection, they have to yield the right of way for the pedestrian and give them adequate time to safely pass. So that's really our main concern is saving lives, giving some education, and identifying the areas of town where people are crossing unsafely, and we'll designate that and sign it and educate people.
It's great that you guys are working on this and that you're really trying, but the concern, for example, fair time. I don't know if anybody's been on the south end of town during fair time, but them headed over to Bailey's from the fairgrounds. Once you put a law into place or an ordinance in place, you have to apply it to everybody equally. And I mean, are you going to have somebody sitting down there during fair time watching the hundreds of people cross the road right there? Or are we, I don't understand. I don't understand how we're going to apply it in certain areas, but not everywhere. And I think that the downfall of this is people that are not intentionally trying to disobey a city ordinance like that are going to be found at fault if we're applying the law equally. And the people that just don't care and don't read signs all over town, they're going to get fined, never pay the fine, and it's useless.
Mayor?
Does that
You
make
want to
sense?
address that, Chief?
I think so.
If I made, I'm sorry.
So if we're talking about a closed roadway for the fair, that wouldn't apply.
Federal.
It's just,
Federal right there, where they come across from the fair, when the fair's happening. They literally run across Federal to get to Bailey's and get their sodas and hot dogs and whatever else. And it's hordes of people. It's 10, 15 people at a time. Or they park in his parking lot and cross right there. There's no crossing. There's no intersection. There's nothing there.
as long as there's a side street, that's intersection.
Your Honor, can I say something? In Section A,
Pronto?
it says, not that you can't do it, but it's your responsibility to yield to traffic, right? It doesn't say that you have to go to a crosswalk. It says, if you're in a crosswalk, it's the driver's responsibility to yield to the pedestrian. If you're not in a crosswalk, it's the pedestrian's responsibility to yield to traffic. It actually covers both sides. So if somebody's crossing from the fair to wherever, and they're going across and they're doing it safely, it's their responsibility to clear traffic and run across there, walk or hobble or whatever they do. So if you're clearing traffic, it's your responsibility as a pedestrian to make sure you can get to the other side safely and not impeding and causing problems.
And I understand that completely, but are we going to be issuing citations to everybody that doesn't during fair time or during day in the park or?
People who are impinging traffic?
Sure. There's hundreds of people that cross there.
I would think that's the point. Are you going to do it for every single person, though? No. I mean, you can't. You can't just sit there and have somebody there. I mean, just the same as you don't sit there and have somebody enforcing every single law, every single moment, and every single place in the city of Riverton, right? I mean, you got to,
I
you
understand
choose
that.
your enforcement locations, you choose what you're doing. Heck, sometimes we've got grants that they're working to try to get seatbelts and that kind of thing. But I hear what you're saying. I guess the point is, part of the whole point of the justice system is that you have discretion for officers, you have discretion for the judge, you have discretion for prosecutors, all of that. And
Well, I was just thinking if you keep it that way, maybe you can put up like, on the events, like the fair or the day in the park or whatever, you could put up a temporary crossing. It's known,
yeah,
this is going to be heavy traffic here, slow down kind of thing.
yeah.
Pros and cons.
Yep.
Okay, I'm done this time, I promise. Good night.
Thank you. All right, for your question, so the general penalty for anything that it says is unlawful or that doing something is prohibited or doing something is required is a $750 fine maximum. That's at the discretion of the court. We could say, oh, well, let's make it a $100 fine maximum. And probably that's what the judge will tend to do.
But there's no leeway in that.
That's correct. Yeah.
So if you're a frequent flyer and your name is on everybody's dashboard, you as a judge need more authority.
And I don't see frequent jaywalking happen. It could. I mean, as in you're caught multiple times and given a citation, maybe. But having that discretion for the court, I think, is appropriate.
Your Honor, I think the key here is the training moment, the educational moment, so this kind of gives the officers some teeth to be able to stop somebody and say, hey, don't do this.
Yeah, and I agree. And I agree with Mr. Pronto, and I think that's a very good way to see it, is that we're not, when we think of the phrase jaywalking, we're thinking of the idea of you can only cross at a crosswalk.
Right.
All we're saying is if you're crossing somewhere besides a crosswalk, you can't just jump out into traffic. You got to be careful.
It's pedestrian beware.
Yes,
And expect a BTI truck to slam on its brakes in the middle of a block.
exactly. So I don't see that this is, and it probably sounds bad, but this isn't really doing a lot other than saying pedestrians do not have the right of way unless they are in a crosswalk.
Your Honor, and I think that brings up an interesting point. I think a lot of people have the perhaps misimpression or interpretation that just because you're a pedestrian, you have the right of way, or a bicyclist, that you have the right of way everywhere. And you really don't.
And that's very true. And I will say, specifically, bikes, I just was looking at it, are actually supposed to yield the right of way to pedestrians always.
Always.
So there should not ever be bike versus pedestrian accidents. Lo and behold, there are, though.
They don't even follow the regular traffic rules. Why would they follow that one?
Yeah, good point. All right, I think we've probably beaten this to death. Are we ready to vote?
Yes.
All right. All in favor of passage of ordinance number 24006, say aye.
Aye.
Your Honor, do you need a motion for that first?
We had a motion from Councilwoman Borders.
Oh, I'm
seconded by
sorry, I missed that,
Councilman Bailey.
sorry. It was so
Just
long
long
ago.
ago.
I napped, I had dinner, sorry. Has it been said?
Did you
Yeah, no.
register your vote?
Yes, aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. I vote aye. I didn't say so. Okay. Thank you, everybody, though. I mean, I will say, we had another ordinance that we had a lot of feedback from, and we made some decisions about how to change it. And so it's good to have feedback. I by no means think that this is like perfect and we know exactly what they should look like. I think getting feedback from citizens is important. So, Mr. Kaminga, since you're the only, well, no, Ms. Lee is here too. Oh, well, and Mr. Kosorok. Thank you for being willing to chime in and give us your feedback. I appreciate it. It's a good question, too.
Put rumble strips up on the sidewalk.
Jake Breakers is 3 years ago. We took care of that. That I agree with. Actually, not 5 years ago. That's when we talked about that. That was when we had, yeah. All right. We're close to being done. Do we want to take a quick break?
No, let's get her done.
Through.
All right, Resolution 1512, Police Department fee schedule. We have our lovely dispatcher, Sarah Nelson, here. Would you like to report on this?
Should be doing the next one, Your Honor.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're not doing the fee schedule. You're doing the grant application. But you could report on this.
I can do both.
Okay. Chief, how about you do that?
Sure, Your Honor.
Sorry to make your heart stop.
The police department receives approximately 25 to 30 requests for copies of police investigations a week. People can request a copy of the investigation by visiting the office or submitting an online request. Our records administrative assistant will have up to 10 days to complete or present a copy after the request. And the decision to release reports is already covered under Wyoming state statute and our city police department release of information policy. We don't have a standard fee schedule for the police department and other services. We do have a records request set up through the city for regular public records requests. And we've also researched other agencies in Wyoming to see how much they would charge for police investigative reports. And so far this year, staff has processed over 1,000 requests for copies of police investigations. We've attached example of other agencies, what they have charged throughout the state. And also included in the staff report is our proposal for the fee structure. Between printing costs and office supplies, we probably spend in the area of about $9,000 for copy paper services and printing expenses. So this would help cover the cost incurred from production, also staff making copies and preparing copies of the reports. Also will cover services such as our rolling fees, our non-custody breathalyzer, and also be able to recover costs if somebody wants copies of their photographs from a scene using one of the media devices. And that, Your Honor, I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you. Administrative Services Director, Ms. Harris, would you please read Resolution 1512 by title only?
Yes, Your Honor. Resolution number 1512, a resolution of the governing body of the City of Riverton adopting a fee schedule for police reports, services, and replication of pictures, video onto media storage device requests.
Thank you. I'd entertain a motion to adopt Resolution number 1512.
So moved.
Councilwoman Borders with the motion, Councilwoman Salisbury with the second. Discussion?
What is the fee?
Oh, that is recorded on
Page 10.
page
10.
Yeah, well, page 9 and
Nine.
10. What they propose is $5 for a report, $5 per report up to 20 pages, and then 25 cents per page over 20 pages. Redaction and research fee would be staff time over 1 hour, which I think is consistent kind of with what we do with the other departments. Postage and handling would be the actual cost. Response to agencies and victims who are considered a victim of a crime against persons, no charge. Fingerprint rolling fee would be $5, notary $2, breathalyzer per test, non-custody $1, flash drive CD per each media device actual cost.
Your Honor, when does that come into play where somebody comes in and needs a breathalyzer and they're willing to pay $1 to get that? Does that happen?
It rarely happens. I think
Like someone pulls up, like, I don't know if I should be driving. Can I take the test?
Mrs. Nelson, if you want to come up here, we could hear from you.
A table or
Typically, the only time that we have people come in to do breathalyzers, it's a court order. So, since county started doing the, you have to help me.
24/7.
Yes, 24/7 program. We haven't done it as much, but we do have people coming in to do them, and we send them over to the clerks to pay for it, and then we have a form that we keep track of it.
That actually makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's just that it was unusual, like you just walk up.
What is our cost for I assume there's some disposables or something that we're using for the breathalyzer? Is that our cost for that, or?
yeah, we've looked at the bulk rate. It's anywhere from, if you buy like a couple thousand, it's 50 cents. If you only buy 100, it's like $1.50 plus or minus. So $1 is like right in the middle for the average.
They have
So I mean, really, this is just recouping our cost for the
Actual
the
cost.
consumed part of the test.
That way we don't have to charge 53 cents.
No, I'm just saying, maybe it should be $3 so that they're covering some of her cost of having to do the test and the clerk having to make out a receipt and et cetera, et cetera. $1 sounds a little cheap to me for that. I wish I could get my breathalyzer test done by my drug testing technician for $1.
How about the smart stuff?
Maybe I'll start coming to the city.
Well, Your Honor,
Yes, sir.
I'm just wondering, $5, looking over Rock Springs, Laramie, Jackson, Casper,
Thank you, Ms.
Cody, and Cheyenne. Cody is $20 minimum. Jackson is $15. I realize that some people are against us breaking even, but would prefer us going in the hole all the time. Water, et cetera. And I just don't know why we want to be the least profitable in the hole constantly. Why can't we be a bridge with somebody else? I don't see Jackson $15 per report required or Cody $20. Why ours would be $5.
I think and I hear you, Mr. Larson, and I guess I support and I like this way of setting it up, partly because the idea behind it is to recoup some of the cost, but it is still
Providing service.
still providing something that the public should be entitled to be able to have information that's public information.
Is there a possibility of putting it online?
An interesting question.
I mean, then
And they
then
print their own
it's-
copies.
Then it's their own. That's their own printing costs, and the internet is relatively cheaper than a box of paper.
Well, and you're saying being able to email something, for example, rather than printing it out. I imagine as it stands, I know that, for example, most of the reports between the county attorney's office and the police department are emailed. We're not dealing with paper for the most part anymore.
Your Honor, I can probably fill in some information. So tomorrow, we're having a demonstration from GovQA, which is Cheyenne and a couple places use. That is an online service. We would have to have an initial setup fee, and it'd be easier to send copies of reports that way. But it's probably a little bit down the road, and it would be a initial setup expense the city would incur. And that way they'd be able to pay online and everything.
Do you, for redaction, can you redact your reports electronically? Okay. That was our lead dispatcher nodding, in case you didn't hear it. Okay, but it's a good point. My question, though, is a notary. I'm not aware of anywhere in the city that charges for a notary. We'd be in the minority. Is that correct, Ms. Harris?
Your Honor, we have a $2 per stamp notary fee that we charge.
That's typical.
Correct.
Is that also for our clerks? Is that for the police department as well as for the other city staff?
Yes, Your Honor, it's uniform across the organization.
I've always just used our in-house notary at the county attorney's office, so.
So we were paying for her.
Yeah.
Well, in Your Honor, I think we should recoup some of the money that we put out. $9,000 a year is a lot. It could go somewhere else, and we might as well have whoever is asking for the report pay for that.
Well, and I think one of the biggest things I think of with this is that we have had people that actually tried to use public information requests just as a tool to express their displeasure. And we've had that happen, and
It does curb that.
it does kind of help curb that.
I'm not, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
I'm not against giving out the information, but information costs money because you're delineating somebody's time that they're doing something else for your purpose, sole purpose.
If you had that document electronically and you took it someplace and said, print it for me, it would cost money.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, people don't realize when they print it at their house on their printer, it costs money too. I mean, paper, and anybody bought any toner lately? You know?
It's more
Yeah.
expensive than human blood.
Yeah.
A racket.
So
Well, and I think
we just need to recoup our costs and factor in our time factor of that too. It takes the notary 10 or 15 minutes to get their ID and take their paperwork and stamp it and sign it and whatever. Well, that's 15 minutes of labor that we're spending.
I get it.
So if all the notary business in Riverton came here, you'd have a full-time person just doing notary stuff. And so
There's
there's
a
a
lot of
cost,
notaries.
there's a cost to that.
I agree.
Your Honor?
Any other? Yes.
Yeah, I just want to point out, and I won't ever come up, but if, I'll give you a hypothetical. Somebody wants a copy of a report. Once that report or request is received, then a police employee will process the request. They'll have to go through the system to see if the report investigation's been completed, and then somebody has to authorize that release. And then once that release has been authorized, somebody actually has to read through it in case there's any mentions of minor names or sexual assaults or something privileged. So there's a little bit of time. It's probably 10 or 15 minutes for somebody to actually process each report and read through it to make sure nothing a sensitive nature is released without being redacted. So there's a little bit of staff time behind that. And that's why, you know, instead of going, let's say a 4-page report, 25 cents a page would be $1 recoup. More of $5 is kind of the average, and at least recoups a little bit of staff time who would have to read through each report before they release it.
Any other discussion? Okay. We're ready to vote. All in favor of passage of Resolution 1512, say aye.
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 I vote aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion passes.
Your Honor,
Yes, sir.
one thing though, I would like a better study on what it really costs us.
Not a bad idea. Be able to get a better idea of,
You know,
how much are we getting?
If it's 20 minutes of a police officer,
It's worth more than $5.
it's, last time I wished it was only $5.
Might not be a bad idea just to say the next 20 requests or whatever, we just keep track of the time that's spent on it, so we can kind of get an idea of that.
Then we can revisit this.
Yeah, good point. And then we could decide, hey, this more correctly reflects what's going on.
And state statute accounts for that.
It does, and specifically allows for it. Okay, now, Mrs. Nelson. Consideration of resolution number 1513, DOJ grant application dispatch equipment. You want to come up and report on this? I know this is something that how many years is it that we've now received this grant?
2, and this would be the 3rd time applying.
Good. Well, tell us about it if you could, please.
Okay, so again, this is the 3rd time that we'll be applying for it. I was hoping last year would have been our last year that we were trying to do dispatch upgrades. Unfortunately, one of the quotes that we had received was $2,000 under, we had to pay $2,000 more for those dispatch legs that second set got installed last week. So the dispatchers love them. They love the ability to stand. I'm hoping to get a treadmill or some sort of walking pad at some point so that we can walk while we're reading reports or whatever it is that dispatcher's doing at the time. This year, we are applying for the NTP clock. NTP stands for Network Time Protocol. So this is just a more accurate time that can be used citywide. It'll be helpful for the MDTs that you guys approved this year, and just for us to more so be better, because right now our clock is 2 minutes off. So if somebody looks up, maybe your clock, I'm not
Oh, it
sure.
was until Mr. Butterfield fixed it.
But so that is one of those things we had initially had it in last year's, but it got cut due to the lakes. A purchase of 2 new 24/7 dispatch chairs. I looked it up today because the chief asked me. The last time we purchased 24/7 chairs was back in 2013. So our chairs are 11 years old. And And then last, to pay for the Everbridge software platform that we purchased last year. This is just a continuation. It's a 3-year contract.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, I didn't entertain, oh, no. Administrative Services Director, could you please read Resolution 1513 by title only?
Yes, Resolution number 1513, a resolution of the governing body of the City of Riverton authorizing the submission of an Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistant Grant to the Bureau of Justice Assistance to purchase an NTP POE clock, purchase 2 24/7 dispatch chairs, and pay year 2 of contracts for Everbridge software, a mass notification system.
I'd entertain a motion to adopt Resolution number 1513.
So moved.
Second. Councilman Bailey with the motion, Councilman Peranto with the second. Any other discussion or amendments, additions, questions? Fully funded grant, 100%. Been helpful to have. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I vote aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Thank you, Ms. Nelson. Appreciate your report and appreciate your work on this grant all 3 years. Hope we get it this year. All right, lease agreement. Rendezvous Air LLC, Public Works Director's report, please.
Thank you, Your Honor and Council. I'll be brief. Plane Finders LLC, the two principals in that organization, Robert Steen and Richard Jones, are wishing to terminate their lease agreement at the hangar lease up at Central Wyoming Regional Airport. The reason behind that is they're in the process of selling that hangar to Darren Bailey, who's the principal of Rendezvous Air LLC. We would terminate the existing lease on the old Plane Finders and establish a brand new lease for Rendezvous Air with your approval.
Okay. I'd entertain a motion to approve the termination of the existing ground hangar lease for Plane Finders LLC and grant approval of a new ground hangar lease for Rendezvous Air LLC at the Central Wyoming Regional Airport.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Toronto with the motion, Councilwoman Borders with the second. Any other discussion?
Your Honor, I'll disclose that this is my brother, so, but I have no financial interest in any of that, so,
Okay,
Are you going to be parking your plane?
no.
not gonna park a plane. Thank you. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. I vote aye. Motion passes. Executive session, we wanted to do a brief one. Personnel?
And if we could add legal.
Okay, yes, personnel and legal, that's right. Chair would entertain a motion to convene into executive session for the purpose of personnel, considering the appointment, employment, right to practice, dismissal, complaints, or charges against a public officer, professional person, or employee in accordance with Wyoming Statute 164405A2, or in accordance with 164405A10, also for the purpose of considering litigation pursuant to Wyoming Statute 164405A3.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Larson, second by Councilwoman Borders. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. I vote aye. We stand convened into executive session at 9:01 p.m. Chair invites Mr. Butterfield to attend the executive session. I think that's it. And Mr. Over, I don't anticipate we're going to have any official actions after this one. Woman Borders. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. I vote aye. Motion passes.
Motion
Regular
to
session
adjourn.
is now reconvened at 10:04 PM. We have a motion to adjourn
Second.
by Councilman Peranto, second by Councilman Bailey. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. I vote aye. Motion passed. We are adjourned at 10:05.
Oh, my goodness gracious, 10:05.
Need a bigger bag there?